Dismissal and Doubt. He smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of his lips that sent a shiver down Alara's spine. It wasn't just the resemblance, it was the feeling. A familiarity so profound it felt like a phantom limb, a memory of a life she'd never lived. The way he tilted his head, the way a stray lock of dark hair fell across his forehead, the almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of his eye. Every detail echoed the Jax she'd painstakingly crafted. The Jax who haunted her dreams and filled her waking hours with a strange mix of adoration and apprehension. "Excuse me," Alara finally managed, her voice a mere breath against the crashing waves. The words felt inadequate, flimsy against the weight of her disbelief. The man turned, his gaze meeting hers with an intensity that stole her breath. He was undeniably handsome, with a rugged appeal that transcended the carefully constructed image in her books. But it was the unsettling familiarity, the echo of her own creation, that truly unnerved her. He wore a simple worn leather jacket, jeans, and boots. A look remarkably similar to the clothing she had described countless times in her novels. "Is something wrong?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that resonated deep within her. It was the same voice, the same timbre, the same subtle cadence she'd spent years meticulously crafting. Alara shook her head, her mind racing. "No, I just... you look... familiar." The words were clumsy, inadequate, a pathetic attempt to articulate the storm raging within her. He chuckled, a sound that both charmed and disquieted her. "I get that a lot." He paused, his eyes studying her with an unnerving perception. "Are you an artist?" The question caught her off guard. "A writer," she corrected. "A science fiction writer." The confession felt oddly revealing, a surrender to the absurdity of the situation. "Science fiction," he repeated, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Interesting." He turned and walked away, leaving Alara standing there, the sand cool beneath her feet, the sun's warmth failing to reach the icy chill that had settled in her bones. Was it possible? Could Jax, the man she'd conjured from the depths of her imagination, the man who lived and breathed only within the pages of her books, actually be standing before her? The very idea felt ludicrous, a cruel joke played by her own mind. But the doubt lingered, a persistent whisper in the back of her mind. She'd spent years meticulously building the world of Chronoscape, carefully crafting Jax's personality, his mannerisms, his very essence. She knew him intimately, better than any real person, she often thought. Had that intimacy somehow transcended the boundaries of fiction? Had she unknowingly imbued him with a life of his own? The thought sent shivers down her spine. It was a terrifying and exhilarating prospect. The creative process often blurred the lines between reality and invention. She had poured her heart and soul into Jax, investing him with desires, fears, and aspirations. Maybe, just maybe, she had inadvertently given him the power to step out of the pages and into her life. Days turned into weeks. Alara couldn't shake the encounter from her mind. She revisited the beach, hoping to see him again. A foolish desire fueled by a mixture of fear and fascination. She found herself analyzing her writing process, scrutinizing the details of Jax's characterization, searching for clues that might explain this bizarre event. Her usual creative process was rigorous and methodical. She meticulously researched historical periods, delved into scientific concepts, and crafted richly detailed characters. But with Jax, something had been different. He seemed to have almost written himself, his personality emerging organically from her subconscious. She'd often felt like a conduit, simply channeling his existence onto the page. Now, she wondered if she'd opened a Pandora's box. She questioned her sanity, her grip on reality itself. She'd consulted with friends, with colleagues, even a therapist. They offered sympathetic ears and rational explanations, suggesting stress, sleep deprivation, and even a mild form of delusion. But their reassurances failed to quell the growing unease within her. She knew deep down that something extraordinary had happened. Her writing stalled, the usual flow of words replaced by a torrent of doubts and anxieties. The upcoming deadline for the next Chronoscape novel loomed, a stark reminder of her professional obligations. But she found herself paralyzed by the strange encounter. The very act of writing felt like an act of betrayal, a reckless attempt to control the narrative of a life that now seemed to exist independently of her. She tried to rationalize it, to find logical explanations. Maybe it was a doppelganger, a man who just happened to bear a striking resemblance to Jax. Maybe it was a trick of the light, a mirage created by the California sun. Maybe she was simply suffering from writer's block, manifesting itself as a strange delusion. But every explanation felt flimsy, insufficient to account for the profound sense of familiarity, the unsettling echo of her own creation. Sleep offered little respite. Her dreams were a chaotic blend of reality and fiction, with Jax appearing in various guises, sometimes as the charming rogue from her novels, and other times as a tormented, shadowy figure, his eyes filled with an unfathomable sadness. The line between dream and reality blurred, further fueling her uncertainty. The doubt gnawed at her, growing stronger with each passing day. The beach, once a sanctuary, now felt like a haunted place, a constant reminder of the impossible encounter. She avoided it. Yet the image of Jax, standing on that sun-drenched sand, remained imprinted on her mind, a persistent, unsettling echo in the symphony of her thoughts. The narrative she had painstakingly constructed seemed to be unraveling, not just in the pages of her next novel, but in her own life. The lines between fiction and reality had irrevocably blurred, leaving Alara lost in a labyrinth of doubt and an unsettling sense of the surreal. The power of her imagination, once her greatest strength, now seemed to be her greatest threat. The creative process, once a source of joy and fulfillment, had become a terrifying unknown. The mystery of Jax's appearance, his uncanny resemblance to her character, hung over her like a dark cloud, threatening to consume her entirely. She felt adrift, tossed on a sea of uncertainty, the author suddenly rendered powerless by her own creation. The very foundation of her reality seemed to be crumbling under the weight of this impossible truth. What was real? What was merely a figment of her imagination? The questions pounded in her head, relentless, unforgiving. The idyllic beach, once a source of inspiration, now symbolized the precarious balance between fiction and reality, a balance she had unwittingly shattered. The next move wasn't hers to make. It seemed the narrative had taken on a life of its own.